Hi Valerie and Eric. Good afternoon. This is Ty Haber speaking. I'm sitting at home on a Sunday afternoon with Kitty on an ironing board, and I'm going to try and give an overview of what I learned in the MAT so far and how it has influenced me. As you may or may not know, I'm not a teacher, so I do not have any first-hand experience in a classroom utilizing some of the things that I've learned. So I'm coming from this from the point of view of, well, this is what I think I would do when I was in a classroom, and things that have caused me to pause and think about how I would approach things a little bit differently. Hopefully I'm not going to have any pop-ups on the screen. I do have a kitty beside me, so hopefully this will go well. So wow, what a lot of courses we've taken so far, and a lot of information packed into such a small amount of time. You probably know, here are all the classes. I'm going to go through them one by one and try and highlight points that I think are relevant and are important. And how they've affected me or will affect my teaching. 677, Research-Based Pedagogy for Diverse Learners. This was interesting. This is one of my first exposures to thinking about the classroom and different people in it and how I might approach teaching them and providing them with appropriate scaffolds and that sort of thing. You know, frankly, the way I thought about teaching in the past was, well, we're all in it to learn together, and students, everybody's given the same amount of material, and it's up to them to learn on their own and that sort of thing. But so this kind of caused me to realize that, oh well, every learner is different and they approach learning differently, so it's kind of up to the teacher to kind of figure out the learning style of their students and how to scaffold them appropriately. Also, I kind of learned that there was a pronounced lack of culturally relevant material for teaching. You know, nowadays classes have a mix of students from all over the world, perhaps, and you know, in the past, in my own upbringing, I've been thinking about, well, North American learning and North American history and culture, and not really taking into account that people from other countries may have had different cultural experiences growing up and consequently have different strengths. So that caused me to think about the students or student-centric stuff rather than just pushing the information down to them. Also, I learned about Vygotsky. I'd never heard of the zone of proximal development, so that was kind of interesting to realize that, well, if we challenge our students just a little bit beyond their capabilities, then that's like the optimal way to enable them to learn something. You know, don't make it too difficult or don't make it too easy, but just give them those stretch goals to try and reach and grow from them. Measuring and assessing student activity achievement. Measuring and assessing student achievement. This was kind of neat because, you know, I've grown up taking tests and quizzes and that kind of stuff, but not realizing the larger scale implications of, well, what does that mean in the context of a school or a district or a state, for example. Oh, and by the way, I grew up in Canada, so I have a slightly different perspective on things. Common Core state standards, what are those? We had provincial requirements and that kind of stuff. Same sort of thing, but a little different. Advanced teaching with technology. I am an IT person, so I was really interested in this course, and I gravitated to it a lot. It was really interesting. I've got a notion of digital citizenship, but, you know, kind of thinking about it from the perspective of teens and millennials. You know, there's so many different dangers and mixed signals and issues that kids nowadays are growing up with, where I didn't grow up with those sort of same issues. So that was neat. And the SAMR model, that was kind of interesting to learn that technology should not just be used for technology's sake, but you should actually use it as a way of augmenting or repurposing things. So, and the book that was included as well, The Innovator's Mindset, was an interesting read. Universal Design for Learning, again, another interesting framework. The seminar on teacher education, multilingual acquisition. This was pretty interesting, but very challenging. Looking at English language learners and understanding that students have strengths in their own languages that they can apply in the classroom to things that they're learning, as well as translanguaging. That was an interesting concept about facilitating learning by appealing to the native languages of speakers and that kind of stuff. And it actually, one of the interesting things that I learned was that cognitively, people with a second language are kind of like got a little bit of an advantage because they already have that critical thinking ability to utilize different languages to explain themselves. And so before I thought of just trying to babysit kids, but they only know their own language, and okay, so we've got to help them or give them a leg up to try and learn English. But now I realize that it's actually, they're actually one step ahead of just people with one language. They can kind of relate, and they're cognitively a little bit ahead of their peers. Inclusive education. This was another interesting thing. I always thought of diverse learners as people that needed help or needed coddling and that kind of stuff. And this opened my eyes to education as something that we should understand and figure out ways to give people an on-ramp to education, or how cutting out a curb not only helps just people that are in wheelchairs or whatever, but it also helps everybody. There's all these different effects of if we address the needs of groups, it makes the community as a whole stronger. So that was eye-opening for me. Teaching critical thinking with technology. Another interesting thing about embodying the idea of not just teaching content, but teaching your kids how to learn and how to use critical thinking or higher order thinking skills to reason through stuff and enable them to become better, productive members of society. Curriculum development. This will be interesting for me, learning about it. I've never written curriculum before, and so this will be interesting to understand, how do we actually put together lessons? Action-based research, another interesting course that I'm really looking forward to taking. Understanding, the different kinds of studies, the methodology, the hypothesis, just going through the whole gamut of understanding what research is, educational research, and how that can improve things. So, thanks for listening. Hope it hasn't been too crazy, and have yourself a great day. Bye for now.